this week's Stretch and Explore, we are going to be working with a printmaking technique. A print is really just a copy of something. So for this Stretch and Explore, you will need something to write with. It doesn't have to be a pen, it can be a pencil. A piece of sticky foam, which it has a sticky back on the back and it's foam here. A small piece of tag board, it's kind of like cardboard except it's not as thick. And a pair of scissors. You're also going to need a blotter page, which we're using a piece of newsprint, which I will give you, a page in your sketchbook, and an ink pad. Each person will get an ink pad to use for this week. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be giving you a few little challenges to try with this. The first thing I want you to be able to do is to follow a line. So I want you to make some kind of a line on your page, nothing too difficult, but using your pencil or the pen that you have, I want you to try to make some kind of line on the little piece of cardboard. So go ahead and do that. Then I'd like you to pick up your scissors, and we're going to take a skinny line off the side of this piece of foam. Make sure you're keeping the backing on. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut a skinny piece. Now what this is going to do is going to give us a raised surface on this printing plate. Okay, this is our printing plate. This is going to be raised up, and then we'll be able to put ink on it and print it. So I want you to take the sticky part off, and then using this line, I want to see if you can follow the line you made by pressing it down. If you get a little piece of extra, just go ahead and cut that off. I like to turn it over so I can get it nice and straight. And then use that extra piece to make another little line somewhere on here. So I think I'm gonna make mine go like this, right there like that, okay? So go ahead and get yours set up. That's our first little challenge. Now I'm going to show you how to ink your plate and try it, okay? So this is where we're going to give it a try, a test, and then this is where we're actually going to put it onto our sketchbook. While we're waiting for everyone to get that going, also at the top of your sketchbook, I'd like you to write the word print. Okay, and print just means copy. So make sure you write that down. So there are lots of different ways to do prints. We are using ink, so go ahead and open up your ink pad. And what I like to do is you can either take this and tap it on here, or you can turn the ink pad over and tap it onto the surface of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my printing plate, and I'm just going to tap some of this ink onto my surface, which is that piece of foam. Okay, so now I'm going to take this little printing plate and I am going to print this on my piece of newsprint, giving it a little press. Now you can see what I got here. I got a copy of this. Okay, so now that you've done one print on your practice page, go and ink up again. And we're going to try this in your sketchbook. This time I'm going to turn it, okay? And I'm just going to give it a nice little press. And this is what I got. Now I'd like you to try to make the next print interact with that print, okay? So I'm going to ink this up again. And I think I'm going to make it, let's think about space. I'm going to try to make this coming off of this one. So go ahead and print a second time and see if you can make the two interact. So even just with these two lines, you can imagine if I kept going all the way around, I might have a nice little design there, okay? All right, that is going to be following a line. So I want you to write in your sketchbook, follow a line. So now you know how to follow a line, okay? So for example, for your project this week, if you wanted to draw on your piece of card, your piece of tag board, and then use skinny lines and make your print that way, that would be okay. So the second thing I'd like you to try is taking your piece of sticky foam. I'd like you to try to make two triangles. And it doesn't really matter what the triangles look like. I just want you to try to get two triangles out of your foam, and I'd like you to place them onto your printing plate. Take the sticky part off and place them somewhere on your printing plate. They can be close or far. I'm going to give mine just a little bit of space. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to print that. So this is how you make solid shapes. I'm going to show you what they look like when we print them. And then we're also going to work on revising that. So I'm taking my ink, and I am going to just try to get the ink on just my two shapes. If it gets on my lines, that's okay too. So I've got some ink there, and I'm going to do it on my test. Place it down, give it some pressure, and this is what the shapes look like. I kind of like those, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now reprint them on my actual sketchbook, because I'm testing things out. We're stretching, exploring, seeing what they look like. So I'm going to take those. I inked up only those, and I am going to place them down. And that's what I've got, okay? So, oops, let me see. You can't see that very well. Ooh, let's go there. Okay, good. So, I've got my shapes. Now, what I want you to try, though, is I want you to try to make a revision. So, let's say I printed it and I tested it and I don't like the way it looks. So, what I want you to do is I want you to carefully pick up one of these, and I want you to try to revise it, okay? So, for example, this one was stuck so well that it didn't come off all the way. I mean that it kept all this on the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to my piece, and I'm going to make myself another one. Okay, and notice what I'm doing. I'm just laying it right here. You don't have to do that. If yours came off just fine, that's okay. You might have had a smaller shape. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to make a similar shape, but I'm going to revise it. Let's say I didn't like how big it was. So I'm actually going to make it smaller, okay? And I'm going to take my revision, since this is already off of here, I'm going to take my revision piece, and this time I'm going to make it stick close to it so I can see what that looks like. So now I've got this kind of little bird head looking thing, okay? Now, I'm going to give it a test. Take my ink pad, ink it up, and I'm going to test it on my test page. Okay, and you can see here where I put it together, it makes it one solid shape. All right, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in my sketchbook. Ink it up and take your revision. I'm going to try to make it go close to the other ones. And there's my revision piece. Oops, you cannot see that, can you? Go. Just move that over a little bit. Let's move this whole thing so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay, there we go. So this is solid shapes. So go ahead and label that. I'll give you a few moments to get that finished. This is solid shapes. And we are also doing a revision. And boy, I'm having a hard time keeping that where you guys can see it. Let's write it this way. Okay, so that shows you how to revise something if you don't like the way it looks. So far we have follow a line, and we're also doing some solid shapes. I'll give you a few moments to get that done. All right, so for the last thing, we're going to try a letter. Now, the thing about printing is that you always have to do everything backwards. On some letters, backwards and forward doesn't matter. So, for example, an A, it doesn't matter if you make it backwards or forward. But a B, it does. So what we're going to try to do is, and a C, what do you think? Yes, it does. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to make a C regular, and we're going to try to make a C backwards. So go ahead and draw those two things on your printing plate. And then using the line method, I want you to shave off another line. Remember, the skinnier the line, The skinnier the line's going to be in your printing. And also the thicker the line, the harder it is for it to be able to twist and turn when you go to put it on the printing plate. So keep that in mind. You might have to play around with that a little bit. So I am going to now make my backwards C. And everybody should be doing this now. And I've got this little extra piece. I'm just gonna go, since we're just playing around here, I'm just gonna add it to my shape thing, just to give it another little line. And I'm gonna take my second line, and I'm gonna make my forward C. Ooh, I kinda like it hanging off like that, but that looks a little bit crazy, so let's just do it like this. And I'm gonna add my extra little piece right here, because I don't like to waste any of this, like a little tail on that guy, okay? So get your C ready, and we are now going to print that. I'm loading up some ink, and I'm going to test it on my paper. So you can see the forward C is now backwards and the backward C is now forward. So if you're gonna do anything with letters, you will need to make sure that those are going backwards, okay? And there's lots of ways you can get that set up. So go ahead and print your two C's onto your sketchbook for today. Okay, and we're gonna write a note to ourselves, make letters backwards. All right, so now the last thing we're gonna do is we are going to print the entire plate. Okay, this is the entire plate. So I am going to ink up the entire thing this time, giving some pressure with my ink pad. And I am going to just place that down. I think I'm gonna put it right down here, whichever way I want to, and give it some pressure. And that is my final plate. So you can see that's what I made today. Now, you should have all of these. This is the final plate print. So you should have follow a line, solid shapes with one revision. You should have some letters so that you can see how to make that backward and forward. In the time we have left, if we have any time, you will use the rest of your piece of foam to either pick these off and try something else, or you can add some things. Like I'm thinking I might want to add some things to just make this a design, and then I want you to print this one more time here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let you play around a little more before we clean up. All right, so it's time to clean up. I just wanted to show you what my final plate ended up looking like. I just kind of went with a shape here, some lines and some different things. I revised some stuff, pulled some stuff off, and here is my final print right here. All right, so here's how this is gonna work. Any pieces of sticky foam that you have that still have this on the back go into your bag. This also will go into your bag. Before you put it in your bag though, you should blot off every little bit of extra ink onto your piece of newsprint. And then these two things can go into your bag. The newsprint goes into the trash, and all of your scraps also need to go to the trash. So if you'll just make a little pile, I'll be coming around with the trash can, and you can go ahead and get everything put back in your bag.